What would you do if you accidentally discovered the house next door was occupied by something not human? Something horrifying. Something unspeakably evil. No.
In 1985, Fright Night appeared on screens. Charlie Brewster sees two men carrying a coffin into his neighbor's house while his favorite TV show is on. Fright Night. The host, Peter Vincent, a reference to the horror icons Peter Cushing and Vincent Price, pretends to be a vampire hunter and presents his old movies in which he can be seen killing vampires. Charlie is sure that something is wrong with his neighbor. He starts watching him and notices that he has fangs and is probably responsible for the missing women reported in the news. When friends and police don't believe him and the vampire neighbor threatens him, he seeks help from his TV idol, the fearless vampire killer. Fright Night was a real innovation for the ailing vampire genre. The spectacular mask effects and the brilliant score were also responsible for its well-deserved cult status.
Fright Night.
In 1989, Tommy Lee Wallace's Fright Night 2 was only shown on a few screens and therefore hardly seen by anyone. Since the incident from Part 1 3 years ago, Charlie is in therapy to process the terrible events. His shrink is able to convince him that Dandridge was just an ordinary serial killer and that the vampire story was just made up. However, one day he sees people moving with strange wooden boxes into the apartment building of Peter Vincent. And in fact, they are creatures of the night again, but this time Peter has the snappy neighborhood. The soundtrack by Brad Fiedel is, like the predecessor, one of the best scores ever, but unfortunately not available. On Part 1 there is, as a bonus, the title theme Come to Me, with vocals by Brad Fiedel himself, who is not really convincing as a singer. But in Part 2 there was already a version sung by Deborah Holland in the end credits. And this is where the song's full potential really shows. Fright Night 2 had already bad luck during its production. First off, the director of Part 1 was not available since he was bound with another project, Child's Play. Then many of the actors from Part 1 didn't join, some because of deadlines, others because they didn't like the script. There were massive budget cuts and fatal events behind the scenes. One of the producers even fell victim to a murder on the very same evening after a meeting for distribution and promotion. This led to a very limited release and prevented the actually already planned third part. With an estimated budget of $7.5 million, he made less than $3 million in the US back and was quickly disposed on video. As in Part 1, the trailer contains a lot of unnecessary spoilers from the final, looks hastily crept together with poor sound. When he came out, there were also many bad reviews and they completely fucked up the transfer to DVD. The thing got only a 4:3 full screen ratio and such bad picture that it was kind of unwatchable. I still have one of those so-called DVDs as a beer mat here myself. With actor Brian Thompson, who played in the movie one of the assistants, Bosworth, who constantly eats insects, a reference to Renfield in Dracula, I once talked after Galileo 77, a convention in 2003, of course without 7 actress, at the after-show party, also about his part in Fright Night 2. So I'm clearly not biased at all. Fright Night 2 is an extremely underrated movie. His strengths are not the 2 solid main actors, but the many interesting supporting characters, which are very well cast. However, the highlight for me is the villain Regine, one of the best female vampires ever, and a worthy successor to the equally convincing villain from part 1. The very interesting story has allusions to the original Dracula novel, which also appears as a book in the movie. The variation of the over 100-year-old classic was already well done in the first part, but here it is straightforward developed even further. The girlfriend character is more interesting and believable than the one in the first movie, and the new villains are very entertaining. In 2011 comes with Fright Night, the so-called remake. Charlie Brewster is an average teenage student. When he comes home, his mother introduces him to his new neighbor. He soon finds out his neighbor is a vampire, and since no one believes him, he does the only logical and responsible thing anybody would do in a situation like this. Of course, asking a Las Vegas show magician / vampire expert for help. The movie tries constantly and with raw force to come along as young and modern, but thanks to an uninspired direction he never manages to do so. The characters are walking cliches with as much depth as a flat sheet of paper. The story has absolutely nothing to do with Fright Night, and you can't get rid of the feeling that they just worked through a list. All the names from the previous movie used, check. All professions and hobbies used, check. And so on. The storyline with the magician directly creates the hat trick. Uninteresting, annoying, and so far-fetched that even Doctor Who himself could not follow it with his TARDIS. The only scary thing here is the predictable, simple story, which never surpasses TV level, in some scenes not even reach it. The deserved flop made at a $30 million budget only $41 million back, worldwide, and fled faster from the cinemas than a vampire who saw daylight. In 2013, new Fright Night 2 promises us new blood. High school student Charlie Brewster is taking part in an overseas program in Romania, of course. He has as company his friend Evil Ed and his ex-girlfriend Amy. There he meets Professor Dandridge, who turns out to be a vampire. They visit TV vampire hunter Peter Vincent, who of course has to be convinced. The direct-to-video to garbage can junk has absolutely nothing to do with Fright Night, except the names that are widely used here. He has all the qualities of a C film, which are none, and entertains only through his trash entertainment value.
Hello, my name is Tom Holland.
Tom Holland is an American filmmaker born in 1943. He wrote, among others, the scripts for Scream for Help and the genre cult movies Class of 1984 and Psycho 2, before he made his directorial debut with Fright Night in 1985. The reviews for Langoliers and Thinner can be found with the Misery and the Maximum Overdrive videos. Also for Child's Play there is a same-named special. In 1987 the action comedy wannabe Fatal Beauty showed its ugly face. In this unbearable boring flick with almost criminal bad dialogue, Whoopi Goldberg fights as the toughest cop in LA, sure, against the title-giving drug, which thanks to a production error kills its consumers or drives them, like this Norfest, insane. The obvious Beverly Hills Cop rip-off with tight gags and unbelievable romance couldn't even make $30 million on his unspecified budget in the US back, and was for good reasons torn apart by many critics. At least Brad Dourif's bad guy appearance led to his casting 1 year later as Chucky. The Temp from 1993 helps a manager she has a crush on to get unexpected fast promotions by getting rid of his competition disguised as fatal accidents. The completely predictable Borefest couldn't even make half of his $50 million budget in the US back, and got deservedly rather negative feedback. Holland also worked for TV and direct-to-video. In Miscalculation, the very entertaining second episode of Amazing Stories Season 2 from 1986, a college student brings by mistake a picture to life with a chemical. And, of course, immediately tries to do so with an erotic magazine, with also, of course, monstrous results. In the rather boring and predictable episode 5 of the first season, Tales from the Crypt, Lover Come Hack to Me, the fresh married husband plans to kill his witch wife, and soon learns that she herself, who would have thought that, has murder plans for him. In the similar uninteresting 9th episode of Season 2, Four-Sided Triangle, a woman believes after a head injury that a scarecrow is her new lover. I'm sure the scriptwriter himself suffered from some kind of brain trauma. Really good, on the other hand, is episode 9 from Season 4, King of the Road, in which a former road king and now police officer is blackmailed and forced by a young hot rodder to a final race. The very entertaining episode appeared in advance along with 2 other Tales from the Crypt in the failed pilot Two-Fisted Tales from 1992. In the also good first episode Showdown by Walter Hill, a gunslinger denies his death. And in the god-awful, overlong World War I episode Yellow by Robert Zemeckis, an officer abandons his man, is court-martialed and shot. This war propaganda crap has not even a real fantasy element. In the TV movie The Stranger Within from 1990, in a village a mother's 3-year-old child gets during shopping kidnapped. 16 years later, someone turns up claiming to be this child and settles down with his newfound mother and her boyfriend. What follows are, as usual, many inconsistencies, accidents and murders. Until it turns out what was clear from the start, because otherwise there is no story. Of course, it's not him, but the usual psychopath/serial killer. In 1991, The Owl appeared with 48 minutes as a never-picked-up TV pilot. It's about a mercenary and vigilante known as The Owl, because he never sleeps. Clearly, he has never seen his own movie. The horribly boring shit also appeared in a nearly twice as long, even more boring version on video, in which so many filler scenes from the cutting room floor were fudged in that Holland removed his name and used instead Alan Smythe. In 2006, the 1-hour movie We All Scream for Ice Cream was the 10th episode of the second season of Masters of Horror, based on a short story by John Ferris, probably best known as the author of the same-named novel Brian De Palma's classic The Fury was based on. In this predictable flick, the ghost of an ice cream clown, which got run over by his car thanks to some mean children, is now terrorizing a small town by using the children of his former attackers. Twisted Tales from 2013 consists of 9 not connected horror episodes with different runtimes, like Tales from the Crypt, just in worse, with Holland himself acting as a kind of moderator, partially spoiling for no reason the already thin plot. The episodes, which also exist as web series, tend from kind of okay to unwatchable crap, and especially those with excessive cheap CGI are pure eye cancer. In the wannabe psycho thriller Rock Paper Scissors aka Rock Paper Death from 2017, a serial killer is released as cured from the insane asylum because script says so, and is now haunted at home by childhood memories, ghost visits of his former victims, and an attractive female writer who wants to write his story. The completely unbelievable, pathetic shit got for good reasons torn apart by most critics. He tries desperately to rip off the ex-killer, returns home and is tricked/driven mad by the relatives of his former victims plot of Psycho 2. I mean to vary it, of course, and fails completely. He only was shown in Japan and some film festivals before he was dumped on video and streaming.